Here we are. All right.
Cool.
Thanks for coming. Um, I just want to start by saying that uh, there's no doubt that I would be in a totally different place if I hadn't come around finding you. So I want to say, you know, if only because of that, I think you've done your job here, and I'm so
Mhm.
I'm so
Oh,
thankful. I'm gonna try to multiply the seeds now.
oh, thank you so much. Wow, that's really cool, brother. I feel that received really strong, and yeah, glad for you to be in touch with what I've come into touch be in contact with as well. So it's an honor.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for saying that. Yeah,
So I have as a little bit of the book that I told you about, Torres, Armando Torres,
yeah.
and I just wanted to read this really short little bit here. I didn't know what to pick, so I had to like pick something, and it's basically Carlos speaking.
Hmm.
Um, Wait, did I lose my spot here? Well, he basically just says that it talks about silence,
Hmm.
and yeah, I forgot here. No, haha, I lost it. He
No
says
worries.
that sorcery is the art of silence, and that has spoken through me a lot because I was basically a huge Capernaum, like very loud, very obnoxious, very aggressive. You know, I had to, like I said when we first met, my task now is to make room for other people to
Hmm.
speak. So silence has been like the biggest gateway for me. Like, I'm not a huge lucid dreamer, although I'm bringing it back now. I did
Hmm.
fly when I was young, but it's kind of gone now, mostly. I meet
Hmm.
inorganic beings and dream, and I feel like I avoid, like your last, I think on your last talk, you were saying that it's getting very juicy, like to a point where it's intimidating what you're meeting out there. So that's kind
Hmm.
of what I'm feeling. I have to avoid it a little bit because it's too much. And I react, quite, sometimes, like I said, I've woken up my partner kicking something in the dream and I ended up kind of kicking her. So, it almost becomes like a safety issue.
Yeah.
Um, so
Hmm.
silence has been the biggest thing for me. Um, like the meditation we did with Rachel when we started that talk, I was able to reach some really fulfilling silence, and I've kind of fallen off the track since the dragon has pulled me back in. I've started drinking coffee again, and I was really surfing. I was like, I had quit everything. I was half fasting, half eating, and then I don't know, there's something that comes along and it just pulls us back into our old habit. And I just
Hmm.
today, I feel like last night I was sick
Hmm.
and I told you I was going to fast. So I took that promise and I gave myself strength with it. So I was able to fast today because of our meeting. And now I feel like I'm coming back. So it's really
Yep.
fascinating to watch how this evolves and how you weren't able to meet the first time with me. And
Hmm.
I just thought maybe you want to talk about how silence has impacted your life.
Hmm. Yeah. Thanks, brother. I was fortunate to be taught at a pretty young age the art of gazing in the wilderness. Um, and so it just really, I got to experience deep shifts of the assemblage point through silence as an imprint in my development as a teenager. Um, since then, I've discovered and used darkroom dreaming as a means to get more silent. The darkness seems to be in all the books, Florinda's books and Taisha and everything. Eventually, we get swallowed by the darkness. Um, and so, becoming more familiar with the dark and being more comfortable as an animal perceiving darkness. So, I spend time. I'm lucky to be on this really powerful land where I go out and I have the darkness is where power lies for me, um and silence is just such an incredible thing to have happen to you. And there's deeper and deeper levels. I'm still, at stages that I haven't lost all my shields yet.
Yeah.
um but I'm preparing myself, and listening as I go, and I don't force myself to stay in silence.
Yeah.
I acquiesce to all of the signs and
Yeah.
feelings that come, right? So that I'm not doing what my teachers did, was try to push past their shadow.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that we spend times with purification and we get really strong, and then we're sort of pulled back, and yes, that is the force that is here to make sure we don't unlock the secrets, but that force is in place to challenge us, and it's not something to override. It's something to really get to know yourself and how you respond and how you adapt. And so, Carlos would say that there's no, you don't have any time to waste, and yet you must also act as if you do have time,
Yeah.
like, so that you're not, that's the contradiction, and that's the art of a warrior, really, is to find that place within the contradiction, where you and your relationship with intent uh, can flourish. So silence is essentially a means to stopping the world.
Yeah.
And stopping the world is where one, is able to see, like, as in Taisha's latest book, she refers to the twin world, that there's a world just like this one
Mm.
right next to it. And if we can learn to stay in silence long enough, we will gain the capacity to spend more and more time over there. I get little glimpses of it. I'm there's these Russian dreamers that I talk to that spend hours a day over there,
Yeah.
and they have to do tasks like sweep the floor in the House of Shadows. They
Yeah.
have to do things that would keep their attention from coming back into this world. I have kids and a wife and a
Yeah.
powerful life and powerful people, and I'm a mentor to many, and so I'm not on the same path that Carlos was. I'm following my own feelings and my own guidance, and it's yeah. So silence is just the most incredible thing that can happen to you, and when there comes a point where you cross the threshold of silence and you have access to a deeper level than what people can conceptualize. People think silence is like meditation,
Yeah.
but it's way past that. There's an active side of engaging with intent, where your will becomes developed, right? And that's like what it says in Toros, in the book you're reading or that you read from. It says that there's a danger to developing your power. You can your ego can still take you out, especially when you develop power. So that's why I think it's important to follow your own path and not try to copy somebody or to try to fulfill a certain task that you think your mind tells you needs to achieve.
Yeah.
This
There's
is a
the same warning where they were talking about the seers that were uncompromising.
yeah,
So they thought that's kind of where I was in a way. Without the knowledge of the Toltecs, I was completely uncompromising,
right, right,
and it's very dangerous.
yeah,
And I see it a lot nowadays. This truther thing is kind of really taking off,
yeah,
right? And it's almost like there's a gold rush, and people are like bringing their ego to like get subscribers and like get the truthers gold rush. And
yeah,
it's pretty crazy to watch the power struggles that this brings. And that's why one day I even mentioned Andrew Tate, because I found it, the phenomenon is so fascinating to see this man who's obviously dealing with some very deep issues, like lead the way with millions and millions of young people who are looking for something more than, like, get good grades at school, and it's empty, right? I mean, people, I see young kids running around with dragons all over their shirts, and skull and bones and stuff, and they're like, they're got both their hands in there, and they're like, give me something. And this is why also I felt like you said, you have kids and wife, and I think we relate a lot that way, where whether we like it or not, you and I are sort of bound to this world for a while longer.
Yep.
And at the same time, we have to balance out, uh, especially for me, you know my tendency to want to help more than I can, or I
Mm,
don't know how to say that, but
mm,
force, like you say, you can't force yourself to be silent, worst of all, you can't force someone else.
mm. Yeah.
And I found
We had this,
myself today again, trying to, so much power, that wants to come out of you, and you have all of this
yeah.
beautiful insights, and at the same time you have to respect the speed of the others. So it's very it's almost more like intense that way,
Yeah.
because if we all came together and joined hands, and it would just be too easy.
Yeah. Well, no, it's our lessons come from people.
Yeah.
People as how we learn here, and you could do the her thing for sure. Like there's a Russian dreamer who spent 18 years by himself,
Wow.
with no contact with other people, and he recapitulated, and he did the magical passes, and he accessed the dreaming gates, and he's almost unrelatable. He's
Yeah.
very, very powerful. Um, but
He's lucky.
he came back into the world, and he's at an older age. He conceived a child, and that child came to him in dreaming, um, and now he's having to face and deal with the world, after having spent all that time alone.
He's
And there's
probably a bit
significant,
challenged now.
very challenged, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and then he had all these people become attracted to him, and they were all like moving through his heart, and it
Mm,
like overwhelmed his
yeah.
system. So learning boundaries, like he didn't learn boundaries, he just learned castaneda material.
By himself.
And yeah, he just took off with it. And he had nobody, it's interesting that he avoided Carol Tiggs, that
Mm,
he didn't call and learn from the people who are here. Um, So everyone has their area in which they don't want to be seen, or their wound doesn't, want to be dealt with, right?
yeah.
So that's where our power lies, is by facing somebody who is an actual mirror.
Mm.
And even those mirrors, like Carol Tiggs, have undealt with areas within their being, right? So the Toltec lineage has its pitfalls to this day. It's not all resolved,
Well,
right?
Don
So that's
Genaro said, I will never reach Ixtlan.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, yeah. There's no going home. Exactly. There's no full return. You're always on your journey, and yet there's this feeling of there comes a point where you're okay with all that, and in that acceptance, that acquiescence, then you come out of fear, and that's what Carlos went through. It was all fear, fear, fear,
mm,
and eventually it was acquiescence. Um, and yeah, I'm reading the book that you're talking about right now, and we're in a really unique time to take this body of knowledge and to make it our own, and to but we will learn from the people that we care about the most, and we want to help others. We want to help them to see how powerful they are. We want to help them see how close they are to coming out of the paradigm that's limiting them.
that's what brought me back, man. Like, I went on
Yeah.
my bicycle, and off I went into the sunset. And this was a huge power day for me because I literally I was ready. I told you about the water of life. I don't know
Hmm.
how familiar you are with it, or if you want to talk about that, but it's a
Sure.
huge topic. And because I have that now,
Hmm.
I knew I could go into the mountain and literally live off of my water for weeks. And I knew
Hmm.
how powerful it was. And I knew it was kind of like this enticing light where I would just give everything up and
Mm.
ride my bike into the mountain. Like in a foreign country, I didn't even have a passport. I was like, I was full on kamikaze,
Hmm.
like full breakup, and
Gotcha.
and it was so I basically lost everything. Like I went through it. I was gone from this world. I didn't do it, but I put myself there. I was in that mode. Just like when I saw my death, I didn't actually nothing was putting me really in danger physically, but I totally was dying in my field. So I experienced it. I can say I kind of felt that sort of great ego force
Mm.
staring at me in the distance.
Mm.
So when I went off, after I'd lost and shedded everything and I was ready, like take death as an advisor is probably the most powerful thing I've ever done. And it just makes everything trivial. Like all
Yeah.
of these relationships, all of these traumas, all of these memories, they just become sort of like, yeah, okay, so what? Now now you lose your human form. Now you see the great ego. Now everything is gone in a second.
Yeah.
And I was off into the mountain and I felt that sort of similar feeling where society didn't matter anymore. But then I was faced maybe kind of like that Russian guy who come back to the world. Like I knew that it was going to be there. I knew that I would run out of water or whatever. I mean, it didn't matter. Maybe I would disappear into a flash, but I felt like, okay, I have to come back and
Hmm.
deal with this because it's kind of the easy way out. Like
Yeah.
I was sort of dropping the ball, and it
Hmm.
seems that I was given this path for a reason.
Mm.
I have to come back. And so I
Yeah.
started to push, you know, um, myself more, even because I felt that if I want to help others, I really need to focus on dealing with this recapitulation first.
Mhm.
Because otherwise, like you said, you get power, but you just become dangerous because you can give people like a little bit of that power, and yet you haven't taught them how to deal with their traumas. So they
Yeah.
kind of become reckless also. So I was pulled back by this, I don't know what to call it, a desire to help or to
Mm.
share what I feel like I have found.
Yeah.
It pulled me back,
Beautiful.
man.
Yeah.
I had to.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the Russian dreamers said too. Is that the dark sea of awareness will send you back as a means to tell other people about it. And in reality, it's how we discover our power. Our real power is being able to withstand the tyranny of this realm without it making us become bitter or become a tyrant
Yeah.
ourselves. And so there's a lot of fine tuning that comes, and a lot of humility or humbleness that occurs when you're facing forces that do not know about the things you're aware of. It that the beings, what Don Juan called the black magicians, are the ones that
Yeah.
don't know about anything outside of this construct. And so
Mm-hmm.
all that this phantom world, they defend it with their feelings, with their thoughts, with their mood. And it can be very uncomfortable for someone who loses their shields. And so you go through stages in which you don't have a social mask, and you've removed your social mask because of how cumbersome and heavy it is,
Yeah.
but you're no longer protected the way you used to be. So you have to learn the art of stalking. You have to learn how to match other people's perception and not be offended by anything they do or don't do.
Yeah.
And that takes all kinds of experiences. There's a whole network of things that will come for you.
I find
But
it
even
fun in a way.
yeah, yeah,
It's like I know you like extreme snowboarding. I used to do rock
yeah,
climbing. You know, these things
yeah,
are not easy. They're dangerous.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So we do those things because it's the hardest thing. I think, you know, looking through many universes, what would be the biggest challenge? This is pretty
Mhm.
much it.
Yeah, we're here for a reason, and a lot of shamans or young shamans tend to think that they need to leave early, and they've yet to just come to terms with how much the earth has to offer in this particular layer of the onion.
Yeah.
And it's here where you gain your training to be able to go and face things that are more uncomfortable, like some of the inorganic being interactions. So there's no reason to lose our shields prematurely. They will come off naturally.
At
And if you're conscious, you with each shield you lose, you add a discipline to sort of balance it. And if you were to remove your shields all at once, that would require just such an extreme shift of how you behave that the flyers would sort of take advantage of that moment to blitz you.
yeah. You would lose
So
a
we
bunch
want,
of energy. You would just be like emanating all of this energy out and they would just feed on it.
yeah, and then or you'd become a cult leader, right?
Right.
And they would use you to then tell you things to go and do,
Yeah.
and a lot of that's how my teachers were. They were really fucking powerful, but they were being used to try to get us to believe and mimic their behavior, which would just lead to which is reckless and would lead to, so luckily what seemed like fear was actually, death telling me to get away from these people.
Yeah, I had the
Uh,
similar kind of people, although they weren't aware of the Carlos stuff. It was more
yeah,
like you know, like rebels, really.
yeah,
Yeah, they're sort of, I would call them instinctive or intuitive. They do sorcery intuitively. They would teach
sure,
me like how to be. They were fearless a lot of the
yeah,
times, and they had
yeah,
developed that power, that clarity that becomes the obstacle,
yeah,
where they knew, and no one could really. So there was no more learning for them.
right,
They just knew, and then I could see kind of early actually that, you know, there was something wrong with that, but at the same time, maybe like you, I was out of options. I
mm,
looked around me and I saw a lot of people asleep, and these people
mm,
were just a little bit more interesting. So I
sure,
followed them.
yeah,
And like you said, you just go through their pattern and learn some of what they teach and then become more powerful in a way, and then
mhm,
you end up having to undo some of the stuff that you end up doing with them. And that's what I'm
yeah,
doing now.
yeah, me too. Still, yeah, I've just so much to recapitulate because I had so many things were happening on a daily basis. Like I was training with these people for years, but every single day
Yeah.
and every day was more intense than most people's
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
lives. Because we're facing physical fear constantly. We're constantly putting ourselves where we have to reach the place of no pity in order to not get hurt. And so you're building your power in that respect, and you no longer relate to the world. You like you just are really feel very you've isolated yourself essentially, and there's only a few people you relate to,
Yeah.
and so it's hard to walk away from them because you no longer it's like, well, who else am I going to interact
Right.
with? And you realize, well, you're probably going to have to just be alone until time, and you so you accept that aloneness. Like for many years I'm like, dude, this is getting kind of concerning. I don't want to hang out with people. I only want to be by myself.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to feel like that's not safe or dangerous on some level. But I continued to ask my body, and my body kept telling me and putting me in positions of aloneness.
Yeah.
And I eventually started to meet people. It was like the universe rewarded me for that, for being patient.
Yeah.
and the right people came into my life that could help me laugh again because I had become serious, or they helped me to,
Mm.
you know, r- get over this idea that I had some mission or purpose, like really just bring me back to earth. So that it wasn't the kind of people I would have thought. It was people that, helped me
Yeah.
to reintegrate into the world, but they had that edge of humor and intensity that I could transition from this seriousness into a lighter, more adventurous spirit again, because you get confused and complex in your mind when you start to feel isolated. So there's all kinds of helpers in this realm, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. And some of my martial arts teachers as well, just showing me where I'm, where my holes and my weaknesses are, and it's very important to go and face somebody who can kick your ass, and just try to figure out how did they get to this place where they're just so capable. And spending time with people like that, they might be, out of balance as well, but as long as you have a warrior strategy, you can go and learn from them without letting their imbalance, imprint you. You can still gain a lot of knowledge from all of these different variety of teachers in this
If you
realm.
spend enough time with anyone, you'll find where they're out of balance.
Hmm. Yeah,
But some
and
people are
hopefully
pretty
they.
good, and they don't even have like they don't even know about Carlos, or they some of them have barely read
Yeah,
anything. And I loved
totally.
Gurdjieff, who said once that a man who reads nothing is has better culture than a man who only reads the news.
Good shit.
Yeah, so when I
Yeah.
was young, I read like 17, 16, actually 15, I think I started reading. My mom had a used bookstore that was like that. She had more books than anybody around for like 50 miles.
Wow.
So, and I had this crazy uncle, is one of those like black magician sorcerer guys. And he told me, you got to read Willem Reich. And do you ever heard of Willem Reich?
I have, but I haven't read anything.
Okay. So basically, he's Freud's genius pupil. And
Mm,
not Jung went kind of another way. He went into symbolism, which is sort of another trap. But
mm,
Reich stayed more practical. He worked with people. And basically, what he discovered was recapitulation in another form. So
mhm.
when I read character analysis, the function of the orgasm, it basically put me into recapitulating without calling it that in a way, because
Yeah,
it was all about going into your, so especially sexual traumas,
yeah,
but it was all about traumas basically that had to do with inhibiting the flow of life force in the body.
yeah.
So in a way, I kind of already started this work for like almost 20 years before I found out I had come across Carlos, and it was sort of, it was for me, I thought it was too mainstream,
Mhm,
and that put me off for a
mhm.
long time. And then actually, it was Flat Earth that led me to you through
Yeah,
Jason.
yeah, yeah.
And it
Cool.
was because I was so scientific, like Willem Reich, he did some pretty amazing stuff. Like he observed biogenesis. So
Mm,
in a sealed, sterile environment, he recreated life, disproving the laws of thermodynamics and stuff like that. So I'd already sort of gone halfway to the magical, but
yeah.
then somebody said, no, you can actually still see the ship if you have long distance. And then I was like, because we had gone for a huge sort of social media retreat. I was in a self exile that's why
Mm,
I didn't come across it earlier. That's why I'm only coming out now. There's a sort
mhm,
of timing thing that happened with me,
mhm,
and I I think that where we're coming at now, there's going to be more science in a way, because this is actually the part that I was hesitating on reading, and I did find it. But he's saying that scientists are basically not very different in when they're true scientists from
Yeah.
the sorcerers, because the Nagual is basically interested in observing.
Hmm.
He's not interested in believing anything. He wants to test it.
Yep.
So this is why what you showed, not what you showed me, but what I came across because of you was so powerful, because right away I knew, okay, I'd been to this island in the Pacific and I had actually called on to the spirits, which everybody there was terrified of. I
Mm,
talked to this guy, this brother killed himself because of them.
mm,
So
mm,
I was like, okay, one night I was like, let's find out. And I called on to them. Like, really, I was young. I was like 20 years old. It's so much power, you know.
mm,
And they came.
mhm,
And, I kind of pulled back for like 15 years. I didn't want to go back there. I even had really terrifying experiences. Like you said, you have to disconnect them from your field, because if you get too close to some of these forces, they sort of like latch on to you.
mhm.
That happened to me too.
Yep.
So I think that we're coming to the point now where we can almost start talking about, well, there's already been like Monroe Institute, but like, let's go farther. And this is kind of why and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is like, I've started this thing. I gave it a name. I have a thing for art. So I like to like put a thing together. I called it the Golden Phoenix, and it ended up being sort of prophetic in a way because of what I discovered after. The Phoenix 138 is the
Mhm,
golden angle.
mm,
It's the golden ratio of the circle.
mhm.
So it's pretty crazy, man. I don't even know how to put this. But I think
Yeah.
that one of the things that I wanted to bring your attention to is the water of life,
Mhm,
because I did start everything all at once, except like I said, I've been recapitulating sort of for decades. But when I came across flat Earth, and then there was Dave Murphy, and he showed me the water, and I've also been delving into other things like mantras, Sanskrit mantras. They're quite powerful.
oh, yeah.
A semen retention. So I sort of like did everything all at once, which is why it was a bit difficult maybe to find out what worked best or what had the most effect, because I did them all at once.
Mhm,
So I kind of went back and forth. I took some stuff out. I started ejaculating again, and then I started eating bad again, and I kind of
mhm.
played with it to see what works, to do science.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I have to say, the water of life is sort of like neck to neck with recapitulation, because it induces recapitulation.
Mm,
So if you do it really
yes.
hardcore, like where what I call it loving your water, basically. So you get to the point where you fall in love with it, which is
Mhm,
took me maybe around 3 months, but after 9 months, it was really like baked in the cake, where I actually love drinking it. I do we call basti, which are enemas.
mhm,
We wash everything in the house with it, so it actually imparts a magical aura. When
mhm,
I wash my clothes, when I wash the house, it's
mhm,
me washing it.
mhm.
So, um, yeah, I'm throwing this out to you so that maybe, you can find out if what I'm saying is
Yeah,
true, and
sure.
give me a feedback
Yeah,
about that, because um, there's only
totally.
two people that I was really sort of, you and Harry Matadine, who wrote the books. I don't know if you heard about him. He was on syncretism once, because
Not
I don't think he's even read Carlos, but just he's so hardcore with the water of life that now he's talking about death. He's talking about making
sure.
peace with death. It sort of like pushes you there.
Yeah. Wow.
It's very
Yeah.
powerful. And I think a lot of people are missing out on that. Like they tried it, but they didn't
Mm,
really go hard with it to find out how far can it take them. So
yeah.
I'm
Makes
sort of just putting this to you, and we're talking to other people. His brother Sage, my partner, talked to to him this morning, and he's
Mm.
also sort of the guy who would tell you it's a panacea. So it's
Yeah.
powerful, man. You got to try the fasting
Hmm.
just with your water. I think it's
Hmm.
more, in a way, it's more powerful than the traditional fasting, because if you want, you can go 3 weeks
Hmm.
without any food, like
Yeah.
quite easily, actually. My partner did 10 days quite easily. She was riding her
Sure.
bike, smoking joints.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, man. 10
Yeah. Yeah.
days, no food. And she felt
Yeah.
fine.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's giving your body that biofeedback. It makes total sense. And that you would, the benefits of not eating and being able to just let your body have a complete break. It's gonna just be supercharged. So, what Don Juan did was take Carlos into the cave for 11 days, and he thought it was like 2 days. He came out and he'd been gone for
Yeah,
11 days without food or water. But that's because he had this powerful person to push him,
sure.
push the assemblage point to another place. So we don't have that.
I really
And
wonder
so,
if Juan Matus knew.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
I'm
I would think that.
I'm guessing that Carlos didn't know, unless he thought that it would be so outrageous that it would come. It would become an obstacle, because the way I see it, Juan Matus
Mm,
knew at some point, he told him that his lineage was over,
mhm,
because he could see Carlos was a different configuration.
yep,
So probably he understood that really the real purpose in the end was for Carlos to write those books.
yeah, absolutely.
So
I think,
if it was too outrageous to put in the books,
yeah,
maybe they didn't talk about it, or maybe he didn't even tell him. But the way I see it, all the scriptures came from the people that basically became the Toltecs,
mm,
and all the scriptures contain the mention of that, the water of life. So they knew about it. There's one big theory, which I'm sort of, my best guess is, if they lost it, it was because they had to hide. And when you drink your
mhm,
water, you do shine a lot.
mhm,
So it becomes more
yeah,
difficult to hide your shining.
sure.
So they might have actually forgotten about it. But anyway, I don't want to hold
No,
you
it's
up too long, man. I don't know how much time you have, but
yeah. I'm chilling. We could go for a little bit.
sure.
But yeah, I think that the rituals that the Toltecs used to use were so in depth and so complex, and they followed very specific procedures that put them so far into their power that it became dangerous. And so that's what the new seers freed the old Toltecs from, was these very complex rituals. And so I think within those rituals, they probably were using all kinds of trickery with fasting, with plant medicines, with
Yeah.
probably their waters. Um, I just think that I think the death to fire probably was also, you know, the Death to Fire used all those old ways, and I'm sure the Death to Fire passed on these things to Carlos and to Carol Tiggs,
Mm.
and so I imagine at some point they were informed of what you're talking about. But there was also the use of sexual energy that the Death to Fire used,
Yeah.
that is so old school that I think it's so much even more powerful than the waters. I think it's our relationship with our power sexually
Yeah. We could do a whole
is
show on sexuality.
yeah.
I think they
So
kind of
I
complement each other a lot, because the water will harmonize the body, which will
yeah.
really free up a lot of sexual energy.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and so, my point, that, like, having the Death to Fire involved in their lineage, it's like it's just on such another level.
Yeah.
Like, they were just given access to tricks that are so profound, like turning into a crow, like, being able to do these massive, what we'd consider gross shifts of
But are
perception.
we interested in that even?
I mean, it's enticing the concept of staying here for a few thousand years.
Yeah, maybe.
You
Yeah,
know,
I actually, I had that fantasy at one point.
it's not, and it's not something to, I think, try to do. It's something to if one is assigned that task. I think the Deathifier was assigned that role,
Yeah,
and I think it's a really uncomfortable thing to have happen to you, because the longer you avoid your death, the more terrifying death becomes.
right.
The crossing becomes absolutely excruciating.
Yeah, it's almost like the
Um,
easiest for a newborn baby because they don't
yeah,
even have the
yeah,
concept that they're going through this. It's just happening. They're just living it.
yeah, yeah. So there's, Don Juan was not a fan of these old sorcerers that avoided their death,
Yeah,
but he also, like, that's because they loved the earth so much, right? So when you discover the secrets of the earth, right, like the um the Earth's boost,
mm,
which has to do with our relationship to sunlight
yeah,
and its reflection off of the mother.
yeah,
And if you can reach silence and allow that boost to move you into other layers of the onion, you'll get to go visit all these other different options, different visions that are available. And in doing so, you're just completely shown that this is a vision too.
yeah,
And so that's what gives you the reference point for something outside of this construct. And that's where a lot of truthers aren't going. They don't want to do the work that it would take to actually move into these other layers. They want to stay here, and that's cool. I'm not projecting onto them to
yeah.
move into, but that's the difference. I don't really refer to myself as a truther. I've just kind of got kicked out of the shamanic world because they all went along with a bunch of nonsense. And I found myself only relating to people who were kind of like, on this side of it. And I'm really thankful I did, because there's so much energy over here. There's so many people that are willing to look at things like flat earth and really come to terms with the fact we've been sold a very complex and powerful lie.
Mm,
And through the discovering and willing to look and face things as they are, you have sorcerers that are going into other worlds, but they haven't unlocked the secrets of the mystery schools here. They don't realize the depths of deception that are part of the sorcery in this realm. And so, but there is a danger to going and looking at these things as well. If you end up being at odds with these tyrants who are lying, then you're putting yourself in a very kind of delicate situation, right? So it's for me, what we deal how we deal with tyrants is we might poke fun at them, or get creative about how we interact with them. But it as Don Juan said, there's if you go and battle these tyrants head on without strategy, it's not going to go well. And that's why you develop the art of stalking, the principles that come from that body of knowledge, so that you're prepared with all the tools not to overcome them, but to overcome the self. That's where real freedom lies. And so a lot of truthers are trying to battle these forces rather than
yeah.
realize these forces are in place for them to learn about themselves and where their offenses, where they're offended, where they're triggered. That's where everything will help you understand whether you're prepared to encounter the abyss for long periods of time or not. And the abyss is where it's at. I mean, eventually we get to become travelers that are traversing and experiencing the intensity of the darkness and all that it lies, within it. It's a magical realm, and there's all kinds of, just within my own bedroom at night, I get to open doors and experience and observe things with my eyes open.
Did you make your room like totally dark?
I don't even have to anymore. I used to do that, and now there's like light from the moon.
Yeah,
It's all mixed now. So, um, but I do at times put myself in dark closets, or put myself, especially like when there's no moon and I get out into the wilderness. That's an incredible experience
yeah,
to just be, alone Yeah, I don't recommend it for everybody, and there was a time where I was so opened up that it was quite dangerous for
Are you
me.
still doing that?
Yeah. I live close to these I'm in
Yeah.
these powerful mountains right now, and so I'm making full use of it because I don't know where I'll be next year. I may
That's a
be
big
back in.
reason why we're moving to Chiapas.
Mm,
Is we're in Laos right now, so
yep,
I don't recommend anybody come here. I came here from fear of nuclear power, which actually doesn't. Well, nuclear power exists, but it's not dangerous.
right, right.
And it's quite a barbaric land. It's actually I'm gonna do a documentary about this place when I leave. But um,
Cool.
Chiapas is one of the places where there's these old cities there. Like the old world was there, and there's these huge mountains, and the waterfall just keep coming out, and they can't. Their scientists can't explain why there's so much water coming out of there.
Mm, mm,
So as much as I would love in a way to be in the States.
mhm.
I'm not American, so it's just not practical. But in a couple months, I'll be in Chiapas, and I'll look forward to do this kind of stuff. Probably I'll be looking for, who knows, there might be some lineages there.
Sure.
Even if I find like you know a lowly quote unquote disciple to just get my foot in the door.
Yeah. Wow, brother. Yeah, cool. That's huge.
Yeah, no, I like you said, I'm not going head on like with my eyes down without looking, but at the same
Yeah,
time, I know where I want to go, and
absolutely.
one of the things I'd love to do is to create this center that I've told you about. This idea I have, which I already have a few people, sort of members, or I don't know, I call them companions because I think
Yeah,
it sounds better.
yeah,
And but they're not really, I let them in because they love their water and they understand the shape of the world, and they kind of understand the value of freedom. But I can't find, you're the only person that I know that has the same intensity that I have.
sure. Yeah.
So I'm looking for them,
Mm.
you know
Yeah.
and I'd love to do something like a center where we have
Mhm.
dark rooms, where we have, I know
Mhm.
that this, making an establishment and making infrastructure like that has also, there's always a danger where it can be turned into a sort of, has less soul. It becomes too rigid.
Sure.
But even if it turns that way, then that's fine with me. Like everything that is born must also die. So my creation can have a moment of glory and then become something else. I'm fine with that. But I really see this happening like within a
Cool.
year or so. And
Right on.
I'd love to fly you over, man. Like we could do crazy stuff. Like you said, go into the wilderness. If there's 5 or 6 of us, it's not the same. Like it's not so dangerous.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just about listening and realizing where each person is at, and I think having experiences of this nature is how we find out where we're at and how we react to how what comes of it. Um and it's just a matter of time, I think, before more and more people uh gravitate toward the type of things that you and I are doing, and um
I've already seen people that have touched you that have sort of had a blow off, that have gone like too far in one way or another, and I see them maybe in a year coming back,
yeah, yeah,
because
for
those
sure.
seeds are there. So I
Yeah,
haven't given up on any of them. I don't even
yeah.
care, the things that I've said to some people and they've
Mm,
forgiven me.
mm,
I'm just looking. I'm seeing this day down like just the last couple of days. Jason and Bro Sanchez had a huge falling out, and
mm,
I see them coming back together. You know,
mm,
maybe in a couple. Maybe it takes a couple years. Maybe it takes a couple weeks. But down the line, we're all heading
mm,
the same place. And
mm,
I think you're right. And I think Jason has found a pattern where this world as a sort of timer,
Yeah.
and it's going to
Awesome.
collapse.
Mm.
And I think that when it does happen, it's kind of like when the party left, when
Mm.
Carlos left and came back, when he jumped off the precipice, it creates a gate, sort of. Probably all of these powerful beings leaving makes it easier for other people to follow them. And I actually had a dream, um,
Mhm.
on one of my resonance with the Phoenix point. If you take your birthday and draw the Phoenix forward,
Mhm.
and it was, I felt like a sort of Phoenix cataclysm where I could feel people were mass dying around me, like thousands, maybe millions of people were dying. I didn't know. And I
Mm.
could feel all of this energy, like the fear, the trepidation, and then there probably, there would be a bunch of people who are awake in those people who just
Sure.
welcome it.
Mm.
And it creates this huge, like the air starts shaking.
Mm.
It's
Wow.
so I woke up and it was probably the most, like, not terrifying but impactful, like where it resonated with me for a whole day afterwards still,
Mm.
this dream. So I'm
Wow.
not worried. I think that, if I make it to 2046 or whatever, it's a huge opportunity to have a really, kind of a red carpet.
Mm.
So if anything, I'm excited
Yeah,
about
totally.
this. We're
Absolutely.
lucky. The end days are sort of made for us.
Yeah, yeah, Carlos was always saying that it's 15 minutes to midnight, it's 10
Yeah,
minutes to midnight. He's saying trying to get people to realize we're heading into a massive transition, right? And so forces rise to meet each other. And that's what I really believe is that we're all the things that we are meant to learn are being provided, and all the things we're meant to unlearn are being released.
yeah,
And so we're being very, a warrior is very careful about things that he carries with him into the future. And so I'm moving toward becoming a minimalist,
yeah,
as a means to be very adaptable. But I'm also enjoying my life and following my heart and making full use of each experience in each moment. So I treat each day as if, I might disappear any second because of how incredible it makes everything. It brings so much life and death to each feeling, right? And so death becomes the thing that really provides that intensity. And then so you're just sitting there, having a meal with your wife, but you're it's as if you're saying goodbye forever,
yeah,
and you've known this person for eons. And so the quality of being in these times uh is so profound, and
mm,
it's so worth you know just really taking beautiful care of ourselves by following our feelings rather than trying to be disciplined and override. And that's the difference, is like really giving your shadow room to express itself, because there's all of us were wounded and in the realm of affection. Just the fact I was circumcised right away as a child, like, it's such an assault,
yeah,
so much trauma, in a pre-verbal trauma.
yeah,
And so working all that energy out of your being isn't just something you do through some particular discipline. You have to go through getting to know where you're at with your passion for dancing or substances, or whatever it is in your life that you feel called to do as a means to express yourself. It may seem dangerous, like, "Oh, I can't get into that," or "I can't take that," but like, that's just
mm.
limiting yourself. Like, this whole thing is designed for
She's just an
you.
arm's length away to our left
Mm,
at all times, right? Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
when
I
we
mean,
talk of danger, like, you know,
it's yeah, we're being informed at all moments, like, and that's the only way to, like, this really is an illusion, but it's one of many. So if we take it too seriously, then we'll miss out on the opportunity to free ourselves from it.
yeah, yeah. Well, Maya was translated as illusion, but I think it's, when when you go into Sanskrit, which is sort of a really on the side thing I'm doing, because it's not so important. But it was
Mm,
a powerful language. And
yeah.
when you say Ram, there's
Mm,
that Ra is like being. Ra,
mm,
it comes, and then Ma is like it dies,
mm.
right? So in these words, you have like all of creation. So yeah, my you can say it's an illusion, but at the same time, because we're experiencing it, it's real. We're making
Yeah.
it real. Like our feelings are making
Yep.
this real. Like I
Yeah.
heard you say, I think one time, the universe is made of feelings, and I think it's one of the
Mm.
best lines I ever heard.
Yeah. I think so too. The illusion isn't just because it's an illusion doesn't mean it's not real.
Right.
It's a real dream. This dreaming is real, and we're dreaming.
Yeah.
And so that when I think the blow that will happen is realizing how real it all is. And then from there being able to move into pure presence and then into pure feeling. And if you can become pure feeling, then you're no longer limited at all,
Yeah.
right? So we're going so we get to use this energy, this avatar has all the energy we need. Shamans learn to take the physicality
Yeah.
and turn it into pure energy.
Right.
And so this is our temple, and it's not meant to be, uh, this idea that we would keep it. I mean, you want to take really good care of it, but you also want it's not something that you can do by following a protocol of somebody else's.
Yeah.
It's through impeccability is listening, and it has to do with saving enough energy so that you can be in contact with the dark sea of awareness so that it is informing you and it's guiding you. Otherwise, you'll be in your mind, and the mind is where that the flyers basically control that
Their
there's
point
a
of
dance.
contact with you.
Yeah, it's one of our chakras is being interfered with, and it's not spinning naturally. And so and we will deal with that the rest of our days. It's part of our condition to even Juan Matus and these people recognize that, you know um we have a companion for life, and the flyers are not. They're very, very intelligent in the way in which they operate, and so they're offering us the perfect opportunity to get to know our limitations, but also transcend those limitations. So the obstacle course is designed specifically for us to cultivate our power.
I found that because I've been doing a lot of the Willem Reich stuff, which was sexuality based,
Yep.
now I've moved into, chasing any kind of memory that has
Yeah.
that has potential, that has energy. And
Yeah.
I find these memories now are even more difficult to deal with than these sexual traumas.
Yeah.
And I don't even really, if I use my mind, like you say, I can't see how I could move past that. Some of
Mm,
these things, like how could
mm,
it's
mm.
and
Exactly.
so you really have to go for that true silence
Yeah.
where there you can breathe it out
Yeah.
because it isn't like you don't associate yourself with it anymore. It's just a feeling.
Mm,
So you really have to, I find, um, take it out of its corporality, take it out of its mental aspect, this memory, and
yeah.
really feel it as a solar thing, I would call it, like a sun. You have the moon and the sun. You have to make it a heart thing where you don't even see so much the images anymore or who was involved, but it's more silent. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm starting to be able to breathe out those entanglements and to let them go. But they'll come back. I find like they have been coming back. These memories are very difficult to deal with.
Mm.
And so I
Yeah,
keep
brother.
going back to them without even, choosing to. They just come back to me.
Exactly. Yeah, they're it's all recorded, right? It's within our being, and there's layers and levels of the recapitulation. And I work with a woman who helps me to guide me into those. places very specific in a specific way
Yeah.
to where the emotion can be accessed.
Yeah.
And there's a reservoir of feelings that process out of our being through laughter or joy or I mean tears, sadness, anger. We want to get access to all the different aspects of our being, and a lot of people think that they're enlightened, and therefore, they it's like it's just such a strange concept to me because there's just so many
They're shutting a
levels of
lot of stuff out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like everyone's like, "Oh, I'm a light worker," and it's like, well, okay, like what about being a shadow worker? Like that would be where you're actually going and looking and dealing with the collective conditioning and facing things at their root level. And and a lot of people are avoiding how beautiful the sadness is.
Right.
The sadness is where it's at. Like that's what brings you the harmony is because you're really coming into contact with something that is leveling you. That is, it's a very destructive process to become in contact with, what's available to you. It doesn't happen through, reading books. It happens through really getting into your feelings and then allowing what needs to surface to do so without resisting it, and that's the acquiescence. So there's just, like you were saying that shamans are scientists. They are
Yeah.
scientists of energy. They are seeking to understand themselves
Yeah.
as a means to understand things outside of themselves. And if you become fascinated with the potential as a dreamer, then you really cross a threshold into being open to learning and unlearning that most people just are limiting their understanding of things based on what's within this construct instead of having enough experience outside of it to recognize the limitations of this particular layer. And so that's where we become more expansive. The more expansive we become, the more we understand the contradictions. And the contradictions is what really stretches you out. So Don Juan offered Carlos the opportunity to witness eternity, but he wasn't prepared.
Mm.
Uh, Eternity is a relationship with, everything all at once, and that requires stopping the world for a long period of time and being able to completely, have taken care of yourself so thoroughly that you can withstand the pressures that exist, um, whether it's the forces trying to pull you back or the forces trying to seduce you into, because there's all kinds of invitations that happen when you become an active dreamer. You could easily be seduced into manifesting material wealth or having access to all these women or all these different things that people get offered, and to be able to be so clear on your purpose that none of those things are distracting to you is where your relationship with spirit really shines.
Yeah. I find that some of the people I've heard have really powerful dreaming abilities, and some of them, um, it seems like they've been seduced by something there,
Yeah,
and they talk about things uh, that, in a way, they're not lying about what they're
yeah,
seeing, but they're they're kidding themselves that they understand it all.
yeah,
Because once you bring it back here, it doesn't fit into this reality anymore. This understanding cannot fit in this layer here. So when they start saying the emerald tablets and I saw the Akashic records and stuff, I understand what they're trying to say,
yeah,
but it's a slippery slope where
exactly.
like you say, they'll attract people to them that are easily how to say, enticed by this stuff and looking for that kind of stuff. And they can't really give them what they have.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they can't just, okay, here, just stay behind me and we're going there. And it doesn't even work like that, right? Because everybody has a different, Carlos would be there, They would go to the yellow dunes, and then they would bring the woman because the women are not, like you said, they're not hunted so much in the
Yeah.
other side.
Yeah.
So for the women, like you got to read their books if they even talk about that kind of stuff, because I feel like they're not even so interested in retelling the story
Yeah.
like men are.
Totally.
Like
That's
they'll
the nature.
yeah, they'll just perceive it, but they're not so interested in knowing it.
Exactly. And that's what's so cool about the difference between men and women is
Yeah.
men are striving to get to the top of their pyramid and stand on top, and women already have access to all of it. And so, finding a woman that is powerful to work with in your life
Mm,
that will help you to see the difference and really call you to yourself so
yeah.
that this doesn't become the only thing you're doing. Yeah, there's so much to that, and we're just in this incredible perfect network of opportunity to gain understanding and understanding of what we're doing here. And yeah, we're really in a we're really dreaming. And
Like Rachel, she's really inspiring when she said that she hadn't even watched your videos yet.
yeah,
And I was like,
yeah,
wow, like
yeah,
in a way, the
totally.
discipline, and maybe not, that's how she is. And it's
Yeah, she
powerful.
follows her feelings. She follows her feelings, and
It's really
and
powerful.
she's, really therefore she's gaining a totally different set of experiences, and we're not like meshing.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's powerful
it,
for you
yeah,
because now
totally.
she's an independent observer right next to you.
Yeah,
Super powerful.
exactly.
So
Yeah, and
yeah,
she's
now
learned.
since I read the Abelard,
Mm,
totally changed my relationship with women.
yeah,
Especially, I think this white tantra thing, I was doing it while I was at school because I had a tremendous amount of sexual energy.
sure.
Um, Aries, right? They're very powerful sun. So I was doing this while I was sitting at school. Like obviously you can't, you're sitting in the classroom and all of
Yeah.
this energy is trying to come through you. So I call it the ball of light. I would just sort of sit still and let it radiate. And so I had already acquired that skill. And then once I figured out that, oh yeah, Willemike was really into the orgasm. And I
Mhm.
understand now why, because if you can't even have an orgasm,
Yeah.
in a way, there's something wrong. So you kind of have to start by getting there, maybe,
Mhm.
which is why I call it red tantra.
Mhm.
And then me and my partner made our way through I call pink. So,
Mhm.
you know, physical interaction, no ejaculation. And then you make your way to the white, where there's no even physical interaction or direct touch.
Mhm.
But that power, where now I almost feel like I love, in a way, I can say, I'm a aficionado of sexuality, but at the same time now I've almost developed a taste for not engaging physically better than
Mhm.
engaging physically. So it's then I read Abelard, which
Mm.
explains the whole relationship of sexuality with men and women and the energetic exchange that happens. Now I see women totally differently. Like you said,
Yeah.
they're these really powerful beings. They have a lot of potential anyway,
Mm.
and we need them. Uh, to like the four pillars, right? The Nagual would have the four women, north, south, east, west, because once he goes out there, he needs them
Mhm.
to hold this together. Because, like,
Yeah.
I think you really touched on a really big point, which is probably it's from the books, but male energy is rare.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, the infinite is feminine because
Yeah.
it's empty, it's void, it's it doesn't assert itself, and so the male would necessarily be rare. And
Yeah.
then we can't even fathom that because we live in a male. Yeah, it's like what's his name? He said this is a man's world,
Mm.
and in a way, it is a male creation, but And then in the scripture, they say Eve was made from Adam, which makes sense because you would reintroduce the feminine from this masculine. So
Sure.
it would come through just the same way the male came through the female, and then the female comes through the male back again. It's
Mm,
fascinating, and how we loop this back together now, and we
mm,
head back. It's
beautiful. Beautiful.
it's
Yeah, brother.
beautiful, man.
It
And
is. It all is.
eh,
Yeah, I think it is a feminine realm, and maybe there's a more masculine realm somewhere, but
mm,
in this particular situation we find ourselves in, male energy is very rare,
yeah,
and so for those of us that are willing to really work with women, in an impeccable way
yeah,
is, is such a profound honor, and offers other it offers others a insight as to how to do that, right? So for a man to face a powerful woman and to be able to become the structure in which the feminine can rise within the relationship, and that there's such deep respect and listening. That's their sorcerers, a lot of them were celibate in for periods of time in their life, but they also, uh, they experience such pure affection,
mm,
and that often does lead to really powerful, sexual engagement, in which is used to then do dreaming together.
right.
So, um,
So it's not
but that
necessarily even physical.
right, but it can be both,
Yeah,
right? So, like, you could be in a totally physical experience and reaching really unique states of consciousness together, and then just basically stop and look at the door that you've just opened, and then enter into dreaming, as separate beings, not physically bound.
yeah,
And you've just learned how to, like, titrate in and out of these two intensities, and you develop such respect and appreciation for the experience itself, that the pure affection just builds and builds and builds, and you become connected, on such a deep level. But in order to do that, all of your shadow wounds are going to come forward,
yeah,
and so the relationship is going to provide the opportunity for you to get to know where you're at. And that's why the hermit doesn't get the full experience.
yeah,
It's being able to actually face somebody that can match your power. Um, and there's going to be both sides to that. There's going to be aspects that your power is not going to match the female, and there's going to be aspects where she's not going to be able to match your
yeah,
power too. And so she's gonna be scared of your intensity because of she hasn't worked out certain aspects of her relationship with intent. And then there's going to be elements that are confronted on your side because she has a pull that you don't have, right? She has direct access, right? So to for both a woman to allow a man to enter her, and also for a man to have the courage to enter a woman when you don't have shields, it's no longer the same just unconscious sort of
yeah,
storyline. It's so powerful
yeah,
that you're going to go through different stages of communication. Ultimately, dreaming is communication, and lovemaking is a form of communication that can lead to very advanced dreaming. So, yeah, these are all very powerful topics for sure.
man. This is blowing my mind, and I don't want to take too much of your time.
Totally. Yeah.
And if you want, I'm open whenever you want to talk. Just
Yeah.
uh, just let me know, and you know,
No, let's keep
an
it.
hour
Keep
notice
it.
if you want.
Yeah.
I don't care, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here.
Thank
I'm here,
you.
and
Yeah.
in 2 months I'll be in Mexico, so it'll be better. And we're in different meridians now, so it's nighttime
Right.
here.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Uh, and we can, pick a topic. Maybe you have a topic, and go from there. And we could keep it short too. We could do like a 15, 20 minute whenever, we just agree on a smaller time frame. You froze up. Oh, I lost you. Oh, there you are.
Oh,
You're back.
cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think we'll keep connecting and keep having conversations and see what unfolds here. And it's good to hear you'll be closer. And I plan on coming down south. So I'm going to be spending some time in Nicaragua.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, Mexico is where I plan to spend a lot of my time in my life, because that's where,
Well, you have a
this
spot
knowledge.
at our place for sure.
Brother. Yeah, I look
And
forward to
I
that.
want to get more people. Maybe one day we'll get a bunch of us together on a call. And one of the ideas, actually, I throw this to you. I started doing this, but I just, I didn't really have anybody that was watching that could be interested. But I started doing this body magic. Or I could do mantra also, because I found now that they're really powerful, Sanskrit.
Yep.
And even if it's recorded like this is tonal magic we're doing right now. We're recording it, and then people can replay the magic intent of our intensity. It's
Sure.
crazy. And
Yeah.
so I was
Great.
thinking we could do these body magic things where people can play it, and every
Mm.
day or every second days I would publish another one, and either they do the movement or their own movement at the same time, or they do it later in the day because they're in a different time zone, and start this
Mhm.
sort of thing rolling where every day or every second day there's a new one.
Mhm.
So I want
Wow.
to get a studio and just create this momentum.
Yeah. Love it.
So
Brother, yeah, that sounds powerful. I am starting a course on the 23rd of January that it will be, for people that can afford it. It's pretty affordable, but I'm going to be inviting people to come into a smaller group. It's going to be a 3-month course.
to go to your
And
place.
no, this will be online.
Okay.
And in the future, though, we will be doing things, in person. It's just we need enough people to make it kind of the energy right and the timing,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all the dynamics. But yeah, if you know anybody that might be interested,
I do.
it's a
Yeah.
3-month journey, and we'll be meeting 3 times a month. So it's 9 sessions that are 3 hours long. So it's 27 hours. And it's just going to be really strong. It's going to be a way to cultivate internal power, and to tap into different aspects of gazing and explore the dreaming gates and group seeing. So it's a way to sort of the first offering that I'll be presenting, and it's been guided for me to do this. So I'm looking forward to presenting that, and I'll be sending emails out to everyone who might be interested here in the near future. And
Yeah.
yeah, but I'll
Send me your poster and stuff,
will do.
your write up,
Yep.
and yeah, I'll let you know if anybody's wants to come your way. So thanks for coming on, Joel.
Yeah, brother.
We'll
Thank you for
wrap it
having
up
me.
here, and may you find intent,
Mm,
right?
appreciate that. Yeah, for you as well, brother. Enjoy all of it. Thanks,
Thank
man.
you. Take
Thank you,
care.
brother.